Okay, what I've decided to do today is I've mounted the gearbox in the receiver and I've just held it there with a cable strap, so it's fixed in the position where it should be when the gun's finished. Now what I've done is I've started to weld the front plate on here. Now this barrel here is permanently welded on the inside to this plate. Now this barrel, it's approximately a 1/2 inch outer tube with about an 8.5 to 9mm internal bore on it. Now what I then do is this aluminium tube slides up and down inside it. Now this happens to be a 6-point-something millimeter aluminium tube, this on the internal bore, and I might be using it from a barrel. I'll give it a test out and try it. I have used them in the past and they've worked quite well. I've used them on bolt action rifles. Now in here what I've done, you see there, if you look inside there, what I've done is I've got myself a drill bit which just slides into the air nozzle, and I've packed it with the top end of it with tape so that it slid into the aluminium barrel, and you can see that slides up and down inside the barrel, so I've got the alignment correct. So that's the important thing, getting the alignment right. Also, we need to make sure that the barrel is straight. Now I've not got anything really technical for doing this other than putting a steel rule along the side of it from the receiver, along the side of the receiver, and then measuring the gap between the barrel and the steel rule, and doing that on 3 sides. If I place that there, the top, it probably isn't quite as important as the left and the right, but I've tried to get it fairly good, at least with this front panel here. As I say, that's not so important as long as the barrel doesn't look like it's bent up in the air or pointing down compared to the rest of the gun. Yeah, it's the left and the right which you want fairly accurate. Obviously the sights will take care of any minor discrepancies in accuracy, but it's important to try and get it right. So basically I've put a weld on the front, then I've rechecked the alignment. Any small movements due to the weld cooling down and moving its position I've then corrected, and I've put another weld at the back, and then I've checked it again left and right, and it seems to be working out okay. So what I'll do next is, well, I can either continue going round putting a weld there and a weld there, or I can go straight to one side and then the other. Questionable. It could be best to do it there and there. Anyway, I think this battery is running out on the camcorder, so I'll get this done and then I'll show you what it's like when it's finished. Okay, I've welded that up. Now it's also worth me mentioning that I replaced this plate with a thicker one, because when I was showing you in the previous video and I showed you a 3mm thick plate, I realised that it was going to be too weak to support all the weight. If I put a bipod on this and rested the whole gun on the tip of the barrel, bear in mind this isn't the finished barrel diameter, it's going to be a lot thicker than that. Yeah, if I rested the whole gun on a bipod, it could potentially bend this 3mm plate. So I've replaced it with a 6mm plate, which you can see in there, and I've ground the plate all the way around so that it's got a much better weld all the way around to the box, so it's much stronger. Now this hole here, that's for the gas pipe to be attached. I haven't decided how I'm going to do it exactly yet. It could be a very simple thing. I could end up putting I could end up welding the pipe onto there, or putting a bolt or something through the inside. I may even use the gas pipe for holding the batteries yet. I haven't decided completely, but these are the parts which I'm welding on now, which are independent to however I power it up, so that won't matter. As long as there's a hole there for me to feed wires through if I have to, that should do the job. A little bit of shaping to it with a hammer. Right, what I've been working on is, you may notice that it looks a little bit darker than in the last video. That's because as usual, I get carried away, and I want to do a bit of a bluing just to see how it looks when it's going to be finished. It's coming out okay. I still need to do a few little bits. I still need to weld that little plate on the top. I'll sort that out and weld it on, and then I'll re-blue it when I come to do that. Now, the barrel here. Now, what I've done is I've you noticed in the last well, you noticed in the other bit of video I've done, I've welded an inner barrel on now. So what I've actually done here is, I tend to be a bit of a collector of bits of pipe. You've probably noticed this. Now, I had that inner pipe, and I've welded that to the end plate, but on the inside. Then I've welded this end plate onto the receiver, and then ground it back, and as I say, I've blued it a bit. Now, then I've got this outer tube here, which slides over that. You can see at the end here, it's I've left a little bit of the inner barrel proud, and what that does is I've turned a few bits of metal and things, and this piece on the end here is threaded so that you can fit the what do we call it? Yeah, the bipod mount onto the end. Now, how I'd fit the bipod on is just using, well, basically that thread there has been cut using one of these, which is a pipe tapping wrench. So for doing electrical conduit. So basically the barrel is coming together. Then what I've done is I've got this piece which then slides over that one, and basically I'm lucky enough to find bits of piping which one slides over the other until I get something which is starting to look like a half decent barrel. Then I've got a couple more pieces of pipe. You see I've got a very skinny one which is slid inside there, which actually came off this mop handle which I just picked up lying in the yard, a Welding super mop handle, which happens to be mild steel pipe, very thin. Let's have a look. very thin walled mild steel piping. Now I've then slid that inside this other piece of piping, which happens to be the larger bore electrical conduit. It's about the 1-inch stuff, so you can see it's starting to build up. And I ground a big slot in this outer piece here, and the thin inner piece, you know, the mop handle part. I ground a big slot, and then I've welded it through so that it's welded to this piece. Then I've gone all the way around the top of it there, and I've welded that. So the next stage is going to be I'm going to mount this in the lathe, and I'm going to turn that into a slight taper so that it looks like this barrel has been machined out of one big piece of steel. Hopefully that'll look okay. Then I haven't decided how I'm going to do this last stage. If I just slide this tube over there, just notice I've put a slight step in the end there. Now I've got two ideas. One idea is that I'm going to cut a 33mm outer diameter washer and then fit that in that gap, and somehow weld it in that position. Now what I can do is I can weld it around on this bottom section here, because the wood is going to hide that area and you won't see any welding. Or plan B is I might just weld all the way around there and make a nice strong joint, and then grind it and file it to make it look reasonably neat, and then just glue it. At the end of the day, the plan B would probably be a stronger job. It'll just take a little while making it look presentable, filing it by hand, because I won't be able to put it in a lathe and turn it. Whereas if I put a washer on it of some form, or cut a disc out, I could probably make it look quite neat before putting it in there. But the thing is, I want to try and make this joint where the barrel attaches to the end of the receiver very strong, and the best way to make it very strong is to weld that all the way around. Then it'll be a nice rigid barrel. Now, as previously mentioned, this aluminium tube, which is actually quite a nice smooth a smooth finish on the inside, you can't really see here. It cleans up quite nicely on the inside and makes a decent, you know, a half decent barrel. That will then fit down the inside of this barrel, and it lines up with the air nozzle on the gearbox. So I've got a little bit of machining to do on the lathe.